I knew I was screwed the minute my keycard flashed red, and the security guy, Josh, bless his acne-splotched face, gave me that do I call someone or pretend I didn't see this look. It was 7:06 a.m. on a Thursday, which meant the air still smelled like janitor-grade disinfectant and stale vending machine Pop-Tarts. I had my travel mug in one hand and my phone in the other when the email came through. Your employment is hereby terminated effective immediately. Your access credentials have been revoked. No signature, no salutation, not even a damn period at the end. Just a sterile corporate ghost note nuking 12 years of my life while I was still wiping sleep out of my eyes. I stood there for a second, phone screen glowing like a tombstone. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I just turned slowly, walked to the hallway bench outside conference room A, and sat down like a well-behaved specter haunting the very infrastructure I'd built. People walked by. Some gave me confused half-smiles. A few of the junior devs nodded like they knew something was off but hadn't put the pieces together yet. Nobody said a word. For context, I'm Dana, 52, senior systems manager until precisely 10 minutes ago. Single mom, tech lifer. One of those quiet women who knows where the old code bodies are buried because she dug the graves herself. I built the secure backend platform for the company's investor presentations back when half these execs were still learning how to spell compliance. Hell, I wrote most of the documentation in actual English instead of the Silicon Valley baby speak they shove down HR's throat these days. And yet, here I was, badge deactivated, inbox locked, name scrubbed from the directory like a botched PR scandal, because a fresh out of MBA haircut named Spencer decided I wasn't culturally aligned. His words, not mine. But hey, real quick before we go deeper into this beautiful train wreck, if you're enjoying stories like this, consider hitting that subscribe button. Not even kidding, over 97% of y'all are ghosting these stories without subscribing. It's free. It motivates the team. And let's be honest, if Dana can survive a red badge moment, you can click a little bell icon. Anyway, Spencer strutted into this place 6 months ago like he was auditioning for a reboot of The Apprentice, minus the talent or the hair. His first week, he called me Deborah 3 times. His second week, he accidentally deleted the VPN whitelist and blamed it on a legacy system failure. Spoiler, I was the legacy system. I fixed it, quietly. Like always, what Spencer didn't know, what nobody knew, is that after the merger last year, I started making notes. Not paranoid notes, smart ones. I saw the writing on the wall in Comic Sans bold. The new leadership kept talking about efficiency pivots and talent optimization, and every time someone older than 35 got let go, the replacements had shinier watches and less experience than a student intern on Bring Your Kid to Work Day. So I documented. Every protocol I wrote, I cross-filed. Every server I configured, I logged. And then I set up a contingency plan, not out of revenge, but necessity. The presentation platform, that pretty slideshow Spencer was so proud of, hosted on an isolated backend cluster with a security framework tied directly to admin credential status, triggered by revocation without 48-hour prior notice, all legally cleared by the old CTO and signed off back when people still respected institutional memory. And now here I was, ghosted out of my job with zero notice, sitting on the literal kill switch. Across the glass, I watched the execs gather like penguins around the touchscreen display. Spencer stood at the head of the table, gesturing like a game show host with too much cologne. He was explaining how today's investor deck is gonna knock your socks off, oblivious to the digital guillotine quietly aligning above his gel-slicked head. I didn't move, didn't smile, just sipped my lukewarm coffee and waited. They thought they were firing a relic. What they actually did was unplug the generator, then complain when the lights went out. The email hit at 7:05 a.m. sharp. Subject line, organizational update. Body text, 5 lines of bureaucratic chloroform, stripped of punctuation like they were charged by the character. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. Please return any company property access has been revoked. No Dear Dana, no bullet points, no dignity. I was 3 steps from the building when it came through, balancing a thermos of bitter gas station coffee and a sack of oatmeal for my desk drawer. The keycard reader blinked red when I swiped it, pulsing like the dying heartbeat of something that used to trust me. The security turnstile didn't move. The kid at the front desk, new guy, probably named Kyle or Bryce, tried not to make eye contact, just muttered, "Ooh, might be a system error, you should probably call IT or something." Yeah, Kyle, I am IT or was. I took 3 steps back, turned on my heel, and headed to the bench outside conference room A. Same one I used to collapse on between server patch cycles. The leather was cracked and the armrest had a stain shaped like Michigan. It had seen things, it had seen me. I sat, just like that, didn't scream, didn't barge in. I'd already known this was a probability slowly turning into a promise over the last 2 quarters. The writing wasn't just on the wall, it had been laser-etched, color-coded, and presented in a PowerPoint by a VP who called me resource-heavy during a strategy sync. This was a company that held leadership retreats at axe-throwing venues and called mass layoffs talent rotations. Through the glass wall of conference room A, I watched Spencer parade around like a damn game show host. He wore those pointed brown shoes that looked like crocodile tongues, and that smug, default expression of someone who thought servers were something you hired at a steakhouse. He didn't glance at me. He didn't have to. This was the plan. Public dismissal, quiet and tidy. Make an example out of the dinosaur. Funny thing is, dinosaurs didn't go extinct overnight. Some of us learned to fly. I pulled out my phone, flipped to my saved email folder, opened a thread marked protocol, clause 14, see administrative deactivation response, dated 6 months back. Subject line, contingency approval. Initialed by Charles F. Turner, our now retired CTO who believed in documentation and whiskey, usually in that order. It had taken me weeks to draft the security procedure. I never intended to use it. It wasn't spite, it was protection. Legal had signed off. IT compliance gave me the green light. It stated, clearly and without ambiguity, that any attempt to revoke administrative access without 48 hours notice would trigger a full system lockdown, isolated, secured, with tiered handover instructions buried under credential-level encryption. Standard risk mitigation. Nobody read it, nobody cared, until today. The platform they were about to present on, Investor Deck, Analytics Engine, Real-Time Visual Sim, all of it housed on a server that just checked its admin table and found Dana McConnell, revoked. Inside the room, they were laughing at something. Spencer was pointing at the slide deck. Interns scrambled. A junior PM in a pencil skirt handed out glossy investor packets like they were hotcakes at a pancake breakfast. Meanwhile, the heartbeat of the system had already shifted, like a valve turning, like a fuse humming before the pop. I wasn't panicked. I wasn't angry. I was waiting. And the thing about waiting is, if you've done your job right, the system does the rest. At 9:13 a.m., Spencer made his entrance like he was trying to land a spot on Shark Tank. Collar popped just enough to be relatable, not enough to hide the neck sweat already blooming like mildew. The boardroom lights were dimmed, projector humming, coffee trays lined up like little shrines to caffeine-fueled desperation. The investor team had dialed in 10 minutes earlier, their voices crackling faintly through the glass like ghosts trying to make a deal. Spencer took center stage, spun toward the long conference table, and let loose with a smirk so polished you could slide off it. No seat for Dana? Must have gotten lost in the server room. Laughter, not much, but enough. Enough to know who was in on the joke and who was smart enough to fake it. I didn't move from my perch on the bench, just crossed one leg over the other and sipped my now cold coffee while my name was used as a punchline. 12 years of flawless deployments, server hardening, late-night hotfixes, disaster recovery drills, and uptime miracles, and this is the farewell tour. A room full of suits chuckling like I'd tripped over my orthotics and fallen into irrelevance? Fine, let them laugh. I glanced at my phone, screen dimmed to save battery. No new emails. But then came a ping, small, sharp message from Tony Nguyen, one of the junior engineers I trained fresh out of school. Kid could script in his sleep but had the social courage of a damp tissue. Tony, us server just rejected our credentials. Admin plus team logins equals all invalid. Did you lock something? I let the message hang for a beat. 2, 3, then I tapped reply. Just one character. Mantelpiece, I didn't need to say more. Tony knew what that clock meant. Joked about it before. Back when we'd quietly built the fallback authentication layer, hidden behind so many abstractions only I and the CTO could trace it. A passive listener. Waiting for one condition, my removal without warning. That trigger had fired 2 hours ago. The script was running. First phase, disable all presentation-facing access outside of secure admin sessions. Second phase, begin encrypting local cache copies with rolling credentials, keys stored in a physical hardware module that no one outside of me and Charles had access to. Third phase, lock the interface completely and serve a single line of text on launch. Access terminated. Administrator unverified. Through the glass, I watched Spencer tap at the conference tablet, confusion creeping in behind his eyes. The room was suddenly still. A whisper spread between the VPs like someone farted, but no one wanted to claim it. Touchscreen flickered, briefly lit up, then dimmed again. He tapped harder, frowned, tried another device. The projector screen blinked white, then a prompt. System requires verified administrator to continue. Contact IT for override clearance. And wouldn't you know it, IT had just been terminated with immediate effect. Spencer leaned down, whispered something to the new IT lead, a guy named Brandon who still kept his resume on LinkedIn just in case. Brandon began typing furiously. His face went red, then paled, then red again. I watched it unfold like a nature documentary. Apex predator realizes the prey is booby-trapped. More pings on my phone now. Tony, we can't even get the backups to mount. Jules Finance, why are we locked out of the dashboards? Brandon, are you here? Where's the override? What did you do? I ignored them all. Let them twist. I shifted in my seat slightly. Spine pressed back against worn pleather, watching Spencer's pacing intensify. His hand raked through his hair. Someone reached for printed deck. Another tried dialing legal. One VP held a coffee cup like it might shield her from the fallout. Nobody looked at me, not yet, but they would. The trap had teeth and it was hungry. At exactly 10:01 a.m., the moment their overcooked investor pitch was scheduled to begin, the system heartbeat changed. My phone buzzed once. Not an alert, not a message. Just a log ping from a secure background demon I'd named Tombstone. Cute, right? Tombstone's job was simple: sit quietly in the corner of the server rack like a retired pit bull, watching for one thing: Dana McConnell marked inactive. Not reassigned, not transferred, revoked, like a library card nobody thought was worth renewing. The heartbeat faltered, then stopped, and Tombstone woke up. Inside conference room A, the touchscreen went full Vegas seizure mode, blinking UI fragments, toolbars disappearing, login prompts flashing like strobe lights at a rave full of confused tech bros. I watched Spencer jab at the panel like it owed him money. Behind him, the screen cut to black, just gone, no error message, no spinner, just pure, unadulterated nothing. The analytics dashboard dead. The real-time simulation offline. Pretty graphs they'd built in Tableau over my infrastructure refused to load. And the star of the show, the deck itself, hosted in a custom sandbox with real-time audience tracking and built-in investor engagement metrics, vaporized, still technically there, mind you, just sealed behind credential logic nobody in that room understood. 'Cause I'd written it in Go, not Python, not Java, not anything those bootcamp wonderkinds had ever touched. Just clean, weird, paranoid Dana code, optimized for one outcome: corporate betrayal. Spencer's face changed color like a sunset in reverse, tan to pink to red to pale to something I can only describe as wet cardboard panic. He turned to Brandon, the new IT director, whose credentials had about as much back-end clearance as a cafeteria tray. Brandon was sweating through his Under Armour polo like it was a hostage negotiation. He mouthed something. Spencer shook his head. The phone at the end of the table lit up, investor voices barking faintly through the speaker. Are we starting soon? Is the presentation link broken? Is someone going to fix this? Fix it? Nobody could fix this. Because no one else had the keys. No one else had the root-level recovery token embedded in an encrypted file hidden 3 directories deep in a folder labeled Old Christmas Party Videos. No one else had signed off on the security clause in the kill switch protocol, which required not just credentials, but biometric clearance and a hardware dongle I kept on my keychain, shaped like a novelty hot dog. Long story, don't ask. I didn't move from the bench. My hands folded neatly on my lap, thermos resting on one knee like a chapel offering. My posture was still. My pulse steady. To an outsider, I looked like a woman waiting for a bus. Everyone inside that room, I was the storm they hadn't seen coming. Brandon started pulling up local backups, but they were encrypted, password protected with a 14-character string that rotated daily, logic housed in the same admin table they'd just amputated by firing me. One of the VPs leaned over and muttered something. Spencer snapped back. Hard, real anger now. Not just embarrassment, fear, realization. The dawning horror of a man who built his big moment on a system he never understood and buried the only person who did. The lockout notice began cycling across the main screen in bold white type. System lockdown engaged, administrator unverified, refer to escalation protocol clause 14. See, no one even knew what clause 14 C was. Hell, HR probably thought it was a typo. I'd written that clause with the old CTO, Turner, back when ransomware stories still made headlines and we agreed our system should have one guardian angel. Just one, not a team, not a committee, one name, mine. And now I was watching them try to break in while the house burned behind them, brick by digital brick. A junior exec stood up, pointed through the glass at me and said something. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the fear in her face. I didn't nod. I didn't wave. I just sat there like marble. The old system had activated, and it didn't recognize any of them. The call had already been going for 8 minutes. Investors were still on the line, trying to pretend their time wasn't being violently wasted by a tech mutiny in real time. You could hear them breathing, shuffling papers. One guy coughed with all the subtlety of a man who just realized he could be spending this hour watching his Roomba instead. Inside the room, panic had graduated from a murmur to a full-on chorus. Spencer had sweat stains spreading beneath his armpits like oil slicks, darkening that lavender button-down he wore on important days. He barked at one of the interns, Kira, I think her name was, to get the USB backup from the secondary console. She bolted out of the room like someone had just pulled a fire alarm. I already knew what she'd find. That USB was my decoy. It looked like a simple mirror image of the system. But the contents? Encrypted 3 layers deep with a credential handoff script that required my biometric unlock, face scan plus a passphrase only I knew, my kid's favorite dinosaur, which changes, by the way, weekly. Good luck, Spencer. Kira returned 10 minutes later, breathless, whispering something to Brandon while holding the flash drive like it might explode. He plugged it in. Waited. A red screen flashed. Access denied. Administrator deactivated. Fallback requires authorized escalation key. Brandon's expression crumpled. He started mumbling buzzwords: container mismatch, token authority, legacy encryption, but no one was buying it anymore. Even the marketing VP, whose tech literacy peaked at making PDFs, was leaning forward like, dude, what the hell did you do? Spencer, finally, reluctantly, took out his phone. The call to Charles Turner, a retired CTO, was mercifully short. I imagined it going something like this. Spencer, hey Chuck, we've got a little situation with the investor deck. Turner, clause 14. See, Spencer, right, but is there a workaround? Or Turner, nope. Dana owns it, you removed her. Clause 14, C is active. Good luck, click. Spencer's face fell like a dropped tray. Then came the calls. Desperate fingers stabbing glass screens. First HR. My phone buzzed, declined. Then legal, buzzed again, declined. Then came the CEO. I watched the name flash across my screen, Marjorie V., our steely-eyed, pastel-blazered captain of industry. I let it ring. I let it all ring. Inside the conference room, Brandon had switched to external monitors, trying to port the presentation into a slide viewer. That failed, too. The folder structure was scrambled, file names replaced with hash strings, and the preview generator, disabled by the same lockout script, now crawling like digital ivy through every connected node. The junior engineers, they looked pale now, stared at the mess like ground crew watching a plane crash they knew they could have prevented, but only if anyone had listened to the old lady with the flight manual. Which, I suppose, made me the old lady. I crossed my legs, took another sip from my thermos. Lukewarm sludge by now, but comforting in its own way. He had poked the system without reading the manual, fired the architect and kept the scaffolding, and now the whole damn tower was leaning. No one came to speak to me. Not yet. The instinct was still to fix it themselves, to patch and reboot and override. But overrides don't work when the override is the one who just got booted from payroll. Through the glass, I saw one of the investors disconnect from the call. Then another. Someone stood, unmuted, and said we'll reschedule when your systems are operational again. Click. Spencer dropped his forehead into his palm. I looked down at my phone. Buzz, voicemail, buzz, voicemail, buzz. Another desperate ping from legal. Urgent, can you call us ASAP? I powered the phone off. Silence. That was the part they never saw coming. They thought control came from shouting, corner offices, and high-speed connections. But sometimes the loudest power in the room is the one that just refuses to pick up. By 10:47 a.m., the office buzz wasn't just about the failed presentation anymore. It was about me. Not the usual whispers of she's on her way out or you hear Dana's retiring soon. This was a full-blown folk legend hatching in real time. She coded in a kill switch. Clause 14, see? It's real? Wait, Dana planned for this. I heard the muttering float down the hallway like secondhand smoke. From interns to compliance staff to one terrified exec assistant who looked like she was halfway to filing for unemployment. A few brave engineers, Tony, Jules, and Miguel, approached slowly like I might bite. Dana, what do we do? I didn't even look up. Just opened my phone, scrolled to the right folder, and sent them a file titled Systems Handover Breach Termination Protocol PDF 13 pages. Flowcharts. Preloaded access keys for safe rollback. Built for exactly this scenario. Dated, documented, signed by the old CTO, and filed under an innocuous SharePoint name, Holiday Resources Q4. Zip. Because if you're going to teach people how to handle a digital nuke, hide the instructions next to fake gift wrap budget spreadsheets. Tony opened it, blinked twice, then said, "You wrote all of this?" I nodded once. About a year ago, thought it might come in handy. Miguel whistled. They really fired the wrong person. I raised my eyebrows slightly, not smug, just confirming the obvious. Meanwhile, Spencer was outside the building, marching back and forth in the parking lot like a sitcom husband locked out of his house. Phone pressed to his head, free hand slicing the air. His voice carried all the way through the lobby glass. Just get her back in here. I don't care what legal says, fix IT. He paused, listened, then screamed again. No, I don't have the auth codes. She had them. Kira, the intern, God bless her sweet, terrified soul, peeked out the door and whispered, he's gonna blow a vein. Jules glanced at me. You gonna go talk to him? I tapped open my inbox. Sure enough, meeting request. Subject line, urgent executive discussion. Sender, Spencer Vaughn, declined. I didn't just hit no, I forwarded another email in return. Subject, clause 14, see acknowledgement security dependencies. Dated last Tuesday. Attachment, read receipt confirmed by Spencer Vaughn, 2:14 p.m. It was all there in black and white. He had read it. He had been told. He just didn't believe it, didn't take it seriously. Thought it was a relic, a joke. Another paranoid dinosaur running drills for doomsday in a world of touchscreens and tick-tocks. The doomsday showed up, and guess who forgot her bunker passcode? Spencer stomped back inside, red-faced and pacing like a man whose own teeth were trying to escape his mouth. He passed me in the hallway, glancing just long enough to confirm I still existed, but not long enough to ask, not directly. He still wanted to pretend this wasn't what it looked like. Fine. Let him spin. I had no desire for confrontation. No victory lap, no gotcha moment. I just watched. Let them drown in their own flood. They built the system, but I wired the plumbing. And when they yanked the foundation out from under me, well, I just let the water in. By 11:30 a.m., the investor call had fizzled out like a wet firecracker. One by one, the big names dropped from the line, no parting words, no polite goodbyes. Just soft clicks of disappointment echoing off a brick system and a purple-faced director sweating through his credibility in real time. The final voice before disconnection said it best. We'll revisit this partnership when your team learns how to read their own documentation. Click. The room stayed silent for too long after that. Spencer didn't speak, didn't sit. He just stared at the dead screen like it had personally betrayed him, and aware that it was doing exactly what I told it to do. Nothing. Downstairs, HR finally lost their poker face. A woman named Linda, I think she called herself People Ops now, toddled over in block heels, trying to look like she wasn't approaching a live landmine. Dana, hi, she said, clutching a tablet like a riot shield. So sorry for the misunderstanding earlier. Looks like we may have jumped the gun a bit. I stared. I've spoken with legal and executive. There's actually a really exciting opportunity for you to re-engage with us on a limited-term consulting basis. Totally flexible, of course, just to help us, get systems back online. We're prepared to offer a generous. I held up a hand. She stopped. I reached into my bag, pulled out a small laminated card, and handed it to her. On one side, my contact info. On the other, in clean black type, you already pulled the plug. I'm just the surge protector. She blinked. Is this a quote? I smiled. No, Linda, it's a diagnosis. She turned and wobbled back toward legal like a penguin on a melting ice floe. Meanwhile, the fallout had begun to seep upward. Rumors filtered down from the 14th floor. The board had called an emergency session. Not DEFCON level yet, but close enough that suits who hadn't left their offices in 6 months were now physically present and visibly anxious. Someone had forwarded them a copy of Clause 14. C. Someone else confirmed that yes, it was legally enforceable. Yes, it had been approved. And yes, it had been triggered by the very people who now wanted it undone. I received 3 more voicemails in the next hour. One from legal. We're exploring the full context of the fail-safe clause. Could you advise us on restoring presentation access while maintaining compliance? One from Brandon, the IT director. Hey Dana, do you maybe still have the hardware token? Just so we can look into decrypting the local build. And one from Spencer, voice cracking. Dana, if there's any way we can get you to come in and just undo this. I'll back your reinstatement personally. Full access, just call me. Nope. They had stripped my credentials. They had revoked my access. They had made the decision. Now they wanted the wisdom of the ghost they buried under their own arrogance? That's not how it works. You don't get to set fire to the power grid and then beg the electrician to come fix your charred wiring, especially not the one you told was redundant and emotionally uninvested. I stood up from my bench. Finally, bones cracking like old code thawing after a long freeze. 12 years I gave them. Nights, holidays. That one Christmas where the cluster went down and I remoted in from a hospital waiting room with one hand while holding my mom's hand in the other. And now, they wanted to buy my silence with a 6-week consulting package and a fruit basket. No, not yet. They weren't done bleeding. The offer came in at 1:42 p.m., tucked discreetly between a useless follow-up from legal and another ignored calendar, invite from HR labeled Final Debrief Opportunity Optional Urgent. Subject line, Let's talk, no NDA required. It was from Arcturus Analytics, a boutique data security firm I'd worked with 3 years prior during a cross-departmental audit. They remembered me. More importantly, they respected me. The message was short to the point, and worth every keystroke. Dana, we heard what happened. Word travels fast. We're prepared to offer you a principal-level position. Remote first, flexible hours, double your current rate. Your name came up in every must-have column during our last leadership meeting. You don't need to prove anything. You've already done that. Let us know by EOD. M. I stared at the screen for a full minute before opening a plain text file titled Contingency Exit Package. It had sat untouched for 6 months. Perwritten, preloaded, one click away. The script within generated a spreadsheet. One column, randomized login credentials for Spencer's beloved presentation system. Another, 24-hour expiry timers. The moment the file was opened, the clock would start ticking. After that, gone, non-recoverable, just dust in the digital wind. But the final flourish, what really mattered, was the automated email. Scheduled for 2:00 p.m. exactly, set to go out to 6 inboxes. Spencer, legal, HR, Brandon, Marjorie, and the entire board CC'd on a private thread titled Reinstatement Options Strategic Urgency. Message body, per Clause 14. C of the Emergency Security Protocol, Administrator Lockout has been lifted. System access will remain available for 24 hours before expiring permanently. Good luck without documentation. Dana McConnell. I attached the spreadsheet. No password protection, no trapdoor, just keys. Loose, untethered, useless without a map. Then I hit schedule. I didn't leave a resignation letter. I didn't post on LinkedIn with some glossy caption about new beginnings or grateful for the journey. I packed my thermos, powered down my phone, and tucked the hardware token, hot dog shaped and all, into a small envelope. Left it on the security desk with a sticky note that read, For Brandon, don't plug it in wrong. At 1:59, I was already in the back of the Uber. At 2:00 on the dot, the message sent. I didn't look back at the building. Didn't need to. I'd walked out of servers more stable than their future. By 2:05, Arcturus had already sent over onboarding links. The benefits package read like a care package from a universe that still believed in logic. Optional 401k match. Mental health stipend. No timesheets. A team Slack channel titled What Would Dana Do? I kid you not. At 2:12 I replied, I'm in. Please send my welcome packet to the Santa Fe address. I'll be working from the terrace. They replied with a plane ticket. First class. I never sent a goodbye. What was there to say? I wasn't angry. I wasn't vindictive. I was just gone. Now they'd have to build their future without the past they threw away. Let's see how far that gets them. Monday morning arrived with the hushed tension of a funeral no one wanted to admit was happening. Spencer arrived at HQ looking like someone who hadn't slept, or had, but only under the oppressive weight of boardroom shame and legal disclaimers. His new title, quietly updated in the directory overnight, read Director of External Partnerships, which in our company was code for exile with benefits. A role with no team, no real responsibilities, and just enough rope to keep him technically employed until the quarterly dust settled. His badge still worked. The elevator still opened, but nobody said his name out loud. Not anymore. Not after Clause 14C became shorthand for don't piss off the infrastructure. He passed Brandon in the hallway. Brandon nodded, but didn't smile. HR closed a door behind him without making eye contact. One of the junior devs paused mid-conversation when Spencer walked by and muttered something about McConnell protocol like it was a cautionary tale from a programming cryptid. My name was everywhere, not printed, not posted. Spoken, low, reverent cautionary. They whispered it like it might wake something up. Dana McConnell, the firewall in flats, the mother of the machine, one who wrote her legacy into the logic itself and walked out while the rest of them were rebooting. And me? I was 38,000 feet in the air, halfway across the country, sipping ginger ale and watching clouds drag shadows over the desert below. My company-issued work phone buzzed one last time as the plane began to descend. A delayed message from Marjorie herself. If you're open to revisiting this conversation at a later date, we would be honored to. I deleted it. No reply, no trace. At the Santa Fe terminal, a young woman in a navy polo held a sign that read, Welcome, Miss McConnell. She had a tablet with my new credentials already loaded, a rental car reservation, and a chilled bottle of water with lemon. Arcturus didn't do warm welcomes. They did calculated respect. 20 minutes later, I was standing on the balcony of my new Adobe rental, sunlight baking the bricks, the wind humming low against the hills. The only sound besides the birds was the soft ping of my laptop opening to a fresh new start. New systems, new people, a place where documentation wasn't something they forgot to read, it was gospel. I set down my phone, the old one, the device they'd once used to tether me like a utility. Then I powered it off, for good. Outside, the mountains blinked in the afternoon haze. I poured myself a tall glass of iced tea, leaned back in the deck chair, and smiled at the welcome packet glowing on the screen. They thought locking me out gave them control. All it did was prove I'd been holding the keys. Appreciate you sticking around, you legends of the break room. Subscribe for more chaos. Let's make your old managers spill their coffee in fear.